Boker Tov. Boker Tov. What? Thank you. Everybody enjoying the weather? For how many people in this room might this be the hottest day you've ever experienced in your life? Yeah, I knew there'd be a few. Yeah. How many people went to exercise this morning? Wow, kol hakavod. Was it fun? All right, so for those who missed it, you'll have another chance to do it on Wednesday morning. And then how many of you got back to your rooms to not have water? Lucky for the people sitting next to you. Excellent. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to day one of the ROI Summit. I'm going to take the next 30-ish minutes to tell you what it means to enter into this community. What are your rights and responsibilities as members of this community? And what these next few days together are all about. The story of how we got here starts around 15 years ago, when Lynn Schusterman created a program called the Charlies in memory of her late husband, Charles Schusterman, who passed away in 2000. The goal of the Charlies program was to recognize a global group of outstanding young people who took part in the Taglit Birthright Israel programs in those first few years, who returned to their communities to catalyze change. The Charlies program morphed into ROI 120, the name we used for the first ROI Summit. And that was back in 2006. For that first summit, we searched the world for those young people who were creating new and innovative ways to connect themselves and their peers to Jewish life. And that's just about the only thing that hasn't changed since then. From there, it took a few more years and incredible guidance from the president of our foundation, Sandy Carden, as well as stewardship and advice from people like Yoni Gordis and others, for us to begin to transform ROI from a 5-day conference to a 365-day year-round community. And this year marks a new milestone in our story, because among the first-timers here today is Stacy Schusterman. Stacy, thank you for joining us here. Now, throughout this process, we made a ton of mistakes. And for the returning ROIers who were here in those first few years, you can tell everybody else about some of those. But we kept at it, and more than anything else, we listened. We listened to our members, and we learned from them about what we needed to improve and what we needed to double down on because we were doing it well. The transformation to an active, year-round community of members required us to ask and answer some tough questions about the kind of change we wanted to see in the world. And what emerged was a mission, a theory of change, and essentially a DNA for the ROI community. Our mission is to be a global strategic network of 1,000 who are collectively connecting millions to Jewish life. A global strategic network of 1,000 who are collectively connecting millions to Jewish life. In short, 1,000 to 1,000,000. Sounds nice, right? But how does that actually happen? Our theory of change starts with identifying young innovators and activists, social entrepreneurs, dynamic professionals, capacity builders, and super connectors. You guys. Once we've identified them, we form a community of reciprocity, a community that is rooted in the ideals of giving and getting. And it's not necessarily bilateral or immediate. It's pay it forward. You give to someone and you get from someone else, now or in the future. Network theorists call this a strategic network, which essentially refers to your wide network of acquaintances with whom you mostly have weak ties. But weaker ties actually present huge opportunity for creativity and growth because our close friends tend to move in the same circles as we do. The information they receive often overlaps considerably with what we already know. Acquaintances, by contrast, know people that we don't know, and thus receive more novel and potentially valuable information. When the members of this community interact and collaborate, when weak ties among members get strengthened, all kinds of innovative opportunities emerge. We believe that the interactions between you cause sparks of innovation. New ideas are born, existing ideas get developed, and they are spread. These sparks cause a ripple effect that engages and attracts more people into Jewish life across the world, and in turn, that's how we're transforming Jewish life. In summary, connect and create. That's our motto. Connect and create is what we hope as an organization to do for you, our members, and it's what we hope that you will do for the world. Ultimately, though, it's not just about connecting more and more people to Jewish life as we know it today. It's about connecting more and more people to a vision of what Jewish life can be. A world that's aligned with our values and the values that Lynn and Stacy dedicate their lives and their philanthropy towards. Specifically, I want to elaborate on 4 of those. First, we believe in inclusivity. We are a people that upholds the value of hospitality. But that doesn't always translate when it comes to who we make room for in our tent. When I talk about inclusivity, I mean it broadly. I'm talking about Jews of color, those who are gay, those who are trans, those who are intermarried, those with unique abilities, and those with disabilities. Second, Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. Now, this is a beautifully sounding idea that is hitting a very, very complex time. How do we maintain that ideal? Third, vibrant Jewish life around the world. For years, we hoped and prayed that anti-Semitism was going the way of the dinosaurs. Anti-Semitism is alive and well. And it's incumbent on all of us to take our heads out of the sand and face this reality. And at the same time, we can't solely be focused on the oi. We also have to focus on the joy. 4, tikkun olam, or as we say in Hebrew, tikkun olam. Repairing the world. Our worldview of Judaism is one that is open-minded and open to the world. We don't fear the stranger, and we don't believe in cutting ourselves off. Now, while technology keeps on getting better and better on one hand, we believe that this only makes the value of face-to-face gatherings all the more important for forming connections, relationships, and collaborations. We see ourselves as a vessel trying to catch and harness the sparks that you create. We throw around the term collaboration a lot, but that's a very broad term, and I want to take a few minutes to define what we mean when we talk about collaboration. Collaboration can be brainstorming an idea with one another and advancing that idea toward reality. It can mean co-creating, co-producing, co-directing, which is very nice, but realistically, not all that common. Many of you have your projects and you're well into your careers. For some of you, this might be extremely relevant, and for others not, and that's okay. We all have things to teach and to impart to each other, whether it's hard skills or soft skills. We share knowledge as a form of collaboration. This community is vast in terms of collective experience. Experiences that make us each uniquely capable of offering advice and support to one another. We can collaborate to create change from the outside, but we can also join forces with the established organizations as professionals, as volunteers, as board members. We can help each other land jobs, advance careers, and find volunteer and leadership opportunities. I'm especially excited and in awe, truly, of so many of you who are already accomplished trailblazers, leading movements and networks for change. And I hope that for you, this community will serve as a platform for bolstering your work by enlisting and collaborating with others. We all have followers online and offline, and we can inform and engage our networks with our fellow member initiatives. On the simplest level, we can encourage each other by liking someone's content on social media, retweeting, viewing their videos. We all travel to different parts of the world, and we're always looking for local contacts, for a sofa to crash on, for local insights and connections, and that too is collaboration. What's important is to take away that when we talk about collaboration, it's not about two people co-founding or co-producing something. It's much wider than that. It's really about reciprocity. So what are we doing here? You are here to have one of the most powerful gateway experiences that we're able to offer. It's the gateway into the ROI community, and we call it the ROI Summit. Yes, the next few days are like a gateway drug in the best possible way. We don't believe in cohorts or alumni. In a year from now, we don't want to hear you say that you participated in the past, that you participated in the 2017 ROI Summit. We want to hear you say, I am a part of the ROI community in the present. One of our principles here is that the participants, you, the participants, are the content. This isn't your classic conference. We didn't invite you here so you could sit there and be spoken at. And yes, I know that there's some irony in that I'm saying that to you, speaking at you. Thank you for indulging me. The participants are the content. And for that reason, I ask that everybody please wear your name tags. Help each other out. At ROI, our focus is on the individual and hopefully your lifelong potential for impact. No one is here solely based on the fact that you represent a cool project or a strategically important organization. We know you won't be there forever. It's about the people, not the projects. Now, friends, I've given this talk before, but the world looks very different today than it did a year ago. I want to share two personal stories with you. The first took place a few months back in our office when our team met to begin planning this year's summit. Now, you may have noticed this last night. The ROI team is truly lucky in that we act a lot like a family rather than a group of colleagues. So a few months back, we began to brainstorm about this summit. And someone brought up the fact that this year's summit in Jerusalem would be taking place just a month after the 50-year milestone since the Six-Day War. We began to discuss, to share our opinions about how, what, and why we should mark this milestone. And to be honest, I wasn't prepared for what happened next. All the loaded terms were thrown around: reunification, occupation, celebration, humiliation. The conversation got tense and heated and dismissive and even angry and emotional. And this was among a group of people that loves one another. My second story takes place last October when I found myself at a family reunion in California. Around the table were Democrats and Republicans, Hillary supporters and Trump fans. You could cut the tension in the air with a knife. But everyone behaved themselves by carefully avoiding any reference to politics or the upcoming election, out of fear that they wouldn't be able to control themselves when speaking to those with whom they disagree. So we talked about the weather, and we talked about our pets, and we talked about memories from past family reunions, anything to avoid talking about real issues. Unfortunately, these two stories are not unique. They are a reflection of an erosion that we are witnessing, an erosion in humanity's ability for healthy dialogue. Now, many of you know a lot more about this phenomenon than me. In our age of unprecedented connectivity, we have so many technological tools available to us to connect with people, to learn about different perspectives, and to allow those perspectives to shift our own, in theory. In practice, most of us reside in our own echo chambers, where we're surrounded and exposed to ideas that very much reflect our own thinking. And all too often, ideas and thoughts are reduced to toxic sound bites, where the more extreme you are, the more you get noticed and heard. And that, my friends, that's why we chose Jerusalem as the theme of this year's summit. When we started ROI back in 2006, we chose to hold it in Jerusalem. And over the years, we took the summit to different locations around the country. But ultimately, we brought it back to Jerusalem because of the power of this city and because of its symbolism. And we know, especially this week, that symbols are important and symbols are experienced. We didn't have to choose this theme, and frankly, it would have been a lot easier to avoid it. But in many ways, it feels like this year, the theme chose us. We know there's a power in Jerusalem as a city and as a symbol. For centuries, the Judeo-Christian traditions talk about the heavenly and the earthly Jerusalem. The earthly Jerusalem is for some literally heaven, and for others, a vision that we need to strive for. Pardon me. The earthly Jerusalem is the struggling world in which we live in here and now. The heavenly Jerusalem, for some, is literally heaven, and for others is the vision that we need to strive for. And that line that separates the heavenly from the earthly is a line that we hope to explore together. For us, Jerusalem is a powerful mirror. Let me give you an example. We all know that Jerusalem is a walled city. Last night, Miri showed us the walls upon walls upon walls that make this city. And on many levels, each of us is a walled city. We build walls to protect ourselves, and we take walls down when they're in our way. Walls are a significant part of what makes Jerusalem complex, just as most of us have complex relationships with the walls in our own lives. Walls come in many forms. We hope to use this symbol of Jerusalem to examine the different walls that we have in our lives. Internal and external walls, physical and amorphous walls, real and fictitious ones, online walls, offline walls, red lines, green lines, walls that pull us closer like a magnet, and walls that repulse us away. How rigid and permanent are your walls? What would it take to move them? You all remember the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, where the destruction in our ability to communicate led to the destruction in our ability to build together. My hope is that Jerusalem will serve as a mirror and a trigger to help us all understand this for ourselves more deeply, and in turn, make us all better at listening, truly listening. So as we sat down to design this year's summit, we sought to incorporate this theme of Jerusalem in a way that can be respectful of its complexity, realistic about only having 4 days together, and at the same time, trying to move all of us as individuals and as a community to greater insight and greater impact. And here's what we came to understand. Jerusalem is not only an intellectual experience. In fact, if you've ever heard people talking about Jerusalem, about their encounters in Jerusalem, you usually hear people talking about a sensory experience. A sensory experience rather than an intellectual one. People talk about the light of Jerusalem. They talk about the air and the breezes of Jerusalem, the feeling of the stones. We therefore designed this year's summit using an arc of senses, and our hope is that we will all experience a little bit of Jerusalem through the lens of the senses. Listening, touching, seeing. By experiencing Jerusalem through the senses, we hope to trigger personal and communal transformations. Now let me be clear. We did not invite you, 150 Jews from 29 countries here, to attempt to solve Jerusalem's political, demographic, or geographic challenges. Not at all. This is not Camp David. On the other hand, we are taking a risk by bringing such a diverse group together and using Jerusalem and her walls as a trigger. It's pretty easy for us to stumble on this one. But we believe in the power of this city, and we're willing to take that risk. And in turn, we hope you'll join us, and we hope that you'll each take on some personal risks this week too. Some of you are probably going to feel like we're being too one-sided. Others might feel like we're being too other-sided. For some, it might be too superficial. For others, perhaps too hairy and complex. You're right. You're all right. We didn't make this decision because we have a narrative we're trying to sell you. And it certainly isn't because we think we know better than you. In fact, it's simply because we believe in you and in this community's ability to be reflective and visionary and to create change in the world. Last night, we started with some icebreakers that were meant to poke at your senses. Each of the next 3 days is devoted to one of the senses. Today is about listening. In a few moments, some of you will be starting listening workshops. And after lunch at Spark, you'll be tuned in to what your fellow members have to say. Today is about refining our ability to listen. Tomorrow, Tuesday, is about touch. We're going to take you out of the comfort of this hotel and out of your comfort zone in general. And thanks to the heat, I can guarantee that it's going to be uncomfortable. We will divide up into bus groups, and each group will be guided on a tour of Jerusalem, where you'll be invited to touch the walls and feel the complexity. We will go to old walls and new walls, with stops at the Old City, the Western Wall, the Kotel, to more modern walls, and to the Separation Wall. This won't be your classic tour, but more like a series of snapshots intended to help us each examine our own walls. And perhaps, for those of you for whom Jerusalem is home, this will be an opportunity to experience your city through the eyes of others. With a refined sense of listening, in the afternoon, we will break down some walls during open space, where you all will have the opportunity to set the agenda for what is discussed here. Wednesday is about sight. How does sight connect to vision? And I don't just mean vision, eyesight vision. I mean your vision for change and your vision for the future. These are some of the questions I hope will engage through text study, skills sessions, case studies, and vision circles. On Wednesday evening, we'll be joined by over 100 ROIers, and this will be one of your first opportunities to see and meet the broader ROI community. Thursday's theme is homeward, getting your feet back on the ground and ready for your journey home. Over the course of our 4 days together, we're going to offer you a number of vehicles to experience your process. And I want to elaborate on 3 for now. The first is brain dates. Key to the summit's success is you finding the right people to connect with. And this year, we're refining the concept of brain dates as a way for you to maximize your time in meeting the right people for you. So far, and I can't believe this is true, so far, there are nearly 700 brain dates already scheduled for these next 4 days. By now, you should have at least 2 brain dates scheduled for today, and you're invited to check in at the Brain Bar outside this room and online on the Brain Date platform. In addition to having this tool facilitate connections, on Tuesday evening, we have invited around 100 guests, leaders, experts, influencers, to join us here for executive brain dates. If you haven't already signed up, please take a look at the options today. The second vehicle is pods. You met your pods last night. The pod is a group of 5 people that you will meet with daily. Because 150 is an enormous number, or at least an enormous number of people to try to get to know, we invite you to have a tighter-knit family-like unit to check in with and reflect together. I forgot to click. That's brain dates, pods. Third is the town hall. The town hall is a place where we get together as a community to speak our minds and to hear one another. So as I start winding this down, I have a couple of requests. Take a minute, look around the room. Look around at the people sitting next to you. How are they going to help you? How are you going to help them? Second, make an effort to cut down on our natural inclination to be cynical. I know that some of the give and get stuff and the personal walls might sound kind of touchy-feely for many of you. I ask that you try to stretch yourself a little. At the very least, our expectation is that you won't just be here physically. We want you here, present, with intentionality. Thirdly, engage in urgent conversations, and even uncomfortable ones. Use your senses to experience discomfort as well as joy. We want to be a place where dialogue is modeled. It's not a place to convince or be convinced, but to pause and be exposed and allow for that exposure to shift perspective. And lastly, most importantly, The ROI Summit is 5 days of the year where we gather face to face in order to model the kind of behavior and activity that we want to see in this community year round. I want to say it again, because this is the takeaway. This summit, these 5 days together, are special because it's 5 days where we gather face to face to model the kind of behavior and activity that we want to see in this community year round. Okay, I think I've covered a lot here this morning. I shared how we got here, why we're here, why Jerusalem, and what our aspirations and expectations are. But before I conclude, I want to say something about excessiveness. I know that for some of you, especially those of you who work in the nonprofit world, this summit probably feels way over the top. It's true. The fancy coffee, the Contigo water bottles, this beast of a screen. We strive to do things with quality, and we're not sorry for trying to pamper you a little bit. ROI, and most importantly, Lynn and Stacy Schusterman, recognize that the good work you all do in the world and in the Jewish world isn't easy. It's challenging. It's often void of recognition. It can be frustrating, and the pay is generally pretty low. Part of what we're trying to do here is to communicate a message. Thank you. Thank you for the tireless work you are doing for Israel, for the Jewish people, and for humanity. It's not taken for granted that you, especially you guys, you could be doing anything else. One of our goals here is to give you a chance to recharge before getting back out there to continue doing your work even more effectively. And finally, before I get off this stage and hand the keys of this summit over to you guys, a word about the gift of listening. Thanks to Lynn and Stacy, we have the privilege and potential to experience what it would be like to really hear one another, and hopefully to become the highest version of ourselves as a result. Lynn often says, "I make it possible, but you make it happen." Lynn and Stacy indeed make it possible, and we, the staff, do our best to help set the right conditions. But ultimately, it's yours to make happen. It's 4 days. Make the most of it. Welcome to the ROI community. Thank you.